Welcome to the Weekly Juice Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate, personal finance, investing, entrepreneurship, and the many ways to achieve financial independence. We interview accomplished investors and entrepreneurs with the goal that their stories inspire you to take control of your financial future. Here to get your creative juices flowing, while also documenting their own personal investing journeys, are your hosts, Corey Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua.
Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, it's your boys, Ryan and Corey, here with another episode. Today, we had one of my personal favorite episodes to date. And I know the last couple episodes I've said that was one of my favorite episodes. This truly, top to bottom, was one of my favorite all time from the last 4 years. And there's a reason behind it. We had one of our day one listeners come on the show and share his story of how he left his W-2 job and is now essentially financially independent through real estate investing and started his own company. And he took a lot of the things he's learned by listening to the show over the years, created connections, and built his own business and got himself out of the rat race and created his own destiny.
With 2 properties. He's making $100,000, over $100,000 in profit with 2 properties with a strategy called co-living. Some of you have probably heard of it. Some of you may not. This strategy can change your life. It changed Jesse's life. He was able to move from Portland. He lived in Portland, Oregon, down to Scottsdale, Arizona, and he bought 2 properties. He was living in a unit. There was one that had an ADU. He was able to make several $1,000s a month off one, bought another one. And then what he did is he created this community called the Growth House. And it's honestly, we were talking about it during the show. It's a genius idea. And basically what it is he was going on Facebook to try to find people to live with. And instead of just saying, who's in the area who wants to live with me, the idea struck from, maybe I should find young, budding, aspiring entrepreneurs to live with so that there's no better way to get around those types of people, the 22, 23, 24-year-olds who are like killing it and all want to strive forward together. What a better way to springboard your wealth building journey than to live with people who are also trying to do that. I mean, we talk about getting into masterminds. That's a built-in mastermind. And Jesse was making money doing it. His story about leaving his corporate job, and like, you really need to listen for what he told the corporate hiring guy who, he basically had a sales job and he was getting like sort of a demotion to another part of the organization. He just made a decision. Boom. I'm not doing this anymore. And the line he gave him was hilarious. But this episode, you'll feel our energy throughout it. You'll feel kind of like the bond that we have with Jesse, like the fact that he's been listening to us for so long. It almost brought us to tears, is what I'll say in this episode. And I think we talked for about an hour, but we just made somebody who's been kind of on the sideline friend, someone who we could really see ourselves like connecting with. And I think that people will take a lot from this episode to crush your imposter syndrome, to put all of the excuses aside and just go in full steam. And that's exactly what Jesse did. It's like, I'm pumped up. Rye said he was going to break through our fake brick wall. He gave it away during the episode.
Dude, people know it's fake.
I know.
We'll upgrade it soon.
People do know it's fake.
I don't think I could have said it any better. Yeah. This episode is packed with energy and insightful gems throughout. So without further ado,
before we do, I said this last episode, guys, if you could leave us a review,
you're doing
this is genuine.
He's doing it.
If you could leave us a review, Apple Pod would be the best place to do it. Spotify, if that's where you listen. But if you could leave us a review, 5-star review, just a quick note. It helps us, in so many ways, jumping up in this algorithm, this podcast algorithm. But it's just a little bit of we don't ask for it often. We're trying to ask for it more on shows because it really does help us out. So leaving a review would go a long way. We would appreciate it.
You know what it does? It helps get more eyes on the show. And if you listen to today's episode, this gentleman got his eyes on the show and changed his life forever. So I'm telling you, we're not trying to reach here. We want as many 5 stars as we possibly can because it looks good. It gets people that are interested in changing their lives the information that they need. And it also helps us to get more high quality guests on the show because they know it's a legitimate podcast. So boom. If there's no other reason to do it, please just click on the show on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, drop us a little note. If we've inspired you in any way over the last couple of years.
We'll shout you out too on Instagram.
Exactly. We'll give you a shout out, but we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in again. This week's killer. Let's bring in Jesse. Having purchased investment properties as well as primary residences, we know how daunting it can be to find a reliable lender to secure financing for real estate in the market today. With the up and down of the market, high interest rates, and the complexity of the process, honestly, it can feel like a lot. So to help out our community, we decided to bring on probably the most important person or one of the most important members of our personal real estate investing team onto the show to help out our listeners. Our mortgage lender, Travis David of CMG Home Loans, has agreed to educate our community and assist anyone looking for real estate financing. Whether you're a real estate investor looking to fund your next project or simply looking to purchase a primary residence, Travis will be able to help you and point you in the right direction. So he provides each of his clients with a tailored roadmap designed to guide them through purchasing their first investment property and strategically scale their portfolios over time. So if you're looking to either purchase your first residence or maybe second residence, but a primary residence or invest in real estate, Travis is your guy. Visit our website at www.juice-enterprises.com/need-funding to book a call with Travis to explore all the loan packages that him and his team currently have available. He'll also help assess your current situation and will work with you to map out a plan for the future. So just remember this, we can all win. This is an example we really wanted to help out our community and something we find people are lacking in a daunting process. So if you are looking for real estate financing, we have your back. Make sure to visit our website and Travis will take care of you. Have you been struggling to close more real estate deals? Maybe you're a flipper, wholesaler, or simply looking to purchase a long-term rental property. Having done our fair share of investing in deals over the years, we've learned just how difficult it can be to find high-quality leads and motivated sellers that you can work with. To help solve the problem for us within our business, we hired a team of professionally trained cold callers at REI Call Center who make up to 2,000 calls for us per day. They not only nurture leads that come in, but they also add the leads directly to a CRM, which is known as a customer relationship management software, for us to manage so we can keep everything organized. To take it a step further, they also set us up with a dialer, weekly training calls, and a file vault of documents including scripts and contracts. So if you're looking to take your real estate business or investing portfolio to the next level, visit our Instagram page, our handles @weeklyjuicepod, and click on the link in our bio to book a free 15-minute discovery call with REI Call Center today. Quick public service announcement for all of our listeners. First off, we want to thank you all for tuning into the show, not only this week, but we've seen you coming back episode after episode. And one thing we'd really like your assistance on, if possible, you know that our content's free and it takes a lot to pump this out every week. We're really looking to enhance our overall reviews on the show. That can be on Spotify, but mainly we are looking for Apple Podcasts. If you could please leave us a 5-star review, that will go so long and so far for us. Really, when people are looking to get on shows, they look to see how many 5-star reviews that show has and the number of reviews. So if you haven't left one, please just click on our show. You can scroll down to reviews and then leave the 5-star. Even if you can write a little blurb about us, like what maybe has helped motivate you or anything that is relatable to your life, that would go such a long way for us. And then in turn, it allows us to get high quality guests for future episodes. So if there's been a motivating episode that you can really think back to and that has really helped you in your life, please leave a review because we'll be able to get someone like that on the show in the future to help someone else out. So that would be very much appreciated. And we look forward to continuing more episodes for you. Jesse, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. I know we actually talked for about 20 minutes pre-recording, just vibing and riffing off each other's stories. And I just want to say this is a long time coming. I know you've listened to the show for a while and you've left your corporate job, become a full-time investor and entrepreneur, and just you're killing it, man. And we're just honored to have you on the show, and we can't wait to share your story with our listeners.
Dude, full circle moment. It's a pleasure. I've been listening to you guys since like 2020. Yeah, late 2020.
Yeah. Wow. It's awesome, man. I think I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but I think it's just for us, as much as you say it's a full circle moment, it's a full circle moment for us because we don't know all the time, like the ears and the people that are connecting with the show, right? Like maybe you get a review or maybe you get a DM and like someone, they follow up once in a while, but to really have someone on the show that has implemented things that we've talked about and has taken little actionable advice that you might hear, like a David Green, Brandon Turner, just some name drops there from the Bigger Pockets community that have been on the show, and go do it in your own life. It's probably your 1% out of 100 that's going to actually do it. The rest, everybody's taking notes. They're driving that. That'd be cool one day. Maybe I could do it. But to have the person on the show that has done this, and it's full circle for us. I want to say, like, just to give a little background, I think it was 2020 or maybe I can go back and find the DMs and I'll post them online. I already did on the story, but you followed up with us like kind of every step of the way. And it was just little things. It was like holding yourself accountable almost in a way. Like, hey guys, just like put my first property under contract. Hey, just close on the first property. Hey, it netted this much this year. Hey, this episode's badass, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, 6 months or a year later. I forget what it was. It was a long stretch.
I'm looking at it now. We have messages from February 2021, January 2021. Great podcast, November 19th, 2020. And then you just kept.
I didn't have a single property at that time, guys. And I want to encourage anyone who listens to podcasts, if you get value, reach out to people. I have a podcast now, so I get how it feels. And I can't wait for my full circle moment with some of my listeners, but that's amazing. And I want people to reach out to you guys because I'm sure it's not just me. There's others. So yeah, 100%.
And the best part about this whole thing, Jesse, is that Ryan and I have a lot of things going on. It's all good stuff. We've been talking about exit strategies from our W-2 jobs and to watch, I say this in air quotes, surpass, right? Because it's all relative, but you left your W-2 job listening to our podcast. We actually still have ours, but to watch people grow and go in different directions and explode and be better than us in certain ways, like that's really what this is about, man. There's no gatekeeping here. This is all about like, who can we inspire in any way possible? And the fact that you were messaging us before you even had a property, and now you have several that are bringing in, we're going to get into it, over $100,000 net in your pocket, and you're able to leave your job. It's like, that's it, man. That's what we do.
We made someone's life better by a little bit, even if it was just to light a fire.
Exactly.
And that is full circle for us, which is awesome, man.
Yeah. So let's first of all, for people that they're like, who is this guy? Who are we even talking to? Yeah. Introduce yourself, Jesse. Talk about, who you are, where you're from, and then, your inception story from your corporate job to a full-time entrepreneur.
For sure. Yeah. Jesse Ray from Portland, Oregon. And I always start my story off by saying that I graduated college and I didn't know what to do with my life. So I went back to the one position that I knew I could get. Same position I had as a 14-year-old high school student, a Cabana boy. And that's very sad to say. Like, I paid all this money for that degree and I'm a Cabana boy sleeping on my parents' couch. And at that point, when I pulled on my, my light blue Cabana boy shirt, and no, not a banana hammock, not that type, like just a whole sub, flipping burgers by the pool, I just knew I had to change my life. Like, something had to change. And so for me, it was really diving into personal development. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know it's not a huge surprise, but that book, like, many other people's lives, helped change my life. And so from there, I just realized that books, podcasts were a huge thing for me. And so what I like to do is also follow someone's blueprint. Like, why do I have to reinvent anything? So I literally copied Robert Kiyosaki's blueprint. And he said, hey, if you can sell copiers, you can sell anything. So that's exactly what I did. I got the same job at the same corporation as Robert Kiyosaki to start my journey as, my actual career from Cabana Boy.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know, because before we were chatting, I said, I know you left corporate. What did you sell? And you said copiers. I didn't put the connection with the book. I actually forgot that's what he talked about. But talk about putting something into action, the baby steps to get to the Kiyosaki level, which is unbelievable, right? But that is so cool. So you got into that job. I'm sure you saw some success in sales. Once you do that and you get some money as a college grad, you're probably feeling like, holy shit, this is working. But then you realize after a while, it wasn't what you wanted. So tell us about that transition and the growth in sales.
For sure. Well, I will say, like, people think I'm outgoing and, extroverted, but at the end of the day, when you start a sales career, it sucks. Like, I almost quit 6 times in the first 3 months. They had me going out in the rain in Portland, Oregon, every single day, just knocking on businesses, handing out the business card. Hey, when is your copy or lease end? Like, it sucked. So I will say it wasn't easy. Eventually, I realized, if I read books about sales, if I listen to podcasts, so I dove even harder into that personal development side of things. And that's when, the career started taking off. I was able to make some good money. And I think a couple key points, which I learned from you guys, was like to live below your means. You are in your 20s. If you're currently in your 20s still, like, why the heck would you try to like flex or try to keep up with the Joneses? This is the time in your life just to live below your means and stack everything. And so that's what I did. I had a $42,000 base salary. And for the next 5 years, I lived as if I never got a raise. And here's another thing, especially if you're in sales, if you don't want to, you don't get to see that commission check. So what I did is every single one of my commission checks, I just threw into a savings account. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I just threw every commission dollar into savings. And so that's really what I did to kind of like slowly start figuring out there's something I got to do to invest.
I want to make a point about living below your means. It doesn't matter how risky and or conservative you are. If you do that one thing, if you live below your means, in theory, you'll never have a financial problem. You may not become you may not become absorbently wealthy from that alone, but if you just live below your means and you spend less than you make, you'll have a lot of money in savings. That might, like I said, that might not make you rich, but like that one tool, it's helped both of us. So the foundation, right? That's the foundation.
I think 100%. A lot of
100%.
people can't live below their means. And I don't mean like can't because of like inflation. Like it's so hard for me to explain this. There's so many things going on in the outside world, from social media to, like I said, inflation, things, the world being so expensive, but there's also other people around you that influence you, right? And like you're used to the corporate culture and like, hey, oh, we want to go out on the weekends, we want to spend this, and like, oh, this person bought a car, so let me scale up, and hey, I have the dough to make the car, to buy the car now. And so to really say what does living below your means mean? And I think we talk about this multiple times, or we have over the years. It's like you have a savings rate, and like you can calculate how much you're saving on a monthly basis, and you want to obviously make that as wide or as large as you possibly can. But for you took it a step further. Like, to 42K is not a ton of money. To some people, they might hear this and be like, what are you talking about, man? That's a lot. It is not a lot of money, but you also put your sweat equity into grinding, selling copiers, et cetera, to make the gap of the commission. And I think it was a brilliant move to go blind with that and just throw it in the savings account. Because at the end of the day, like that, we've both worked in sales, and I base salary is low, and then you make a shitload of commission depending how well you do, right? That's another test of an early entrepreneur, I think, is like, hey, I'm getting paid for what I put out and put into this job, right? And so I don't think I'd be able to go to a 9 to 5 every day. And even if it was a fixed salary, and just sit there and be like, okay, no matter if I'm doing amazing or doing horrible today or like sleeping, I'm just getting paid the same. I need the fire, the competition, and, the little carrot dangling. And I think that's probably a little bit of the fire in the entrepreneurial spirit that we all have. But I say this to say, you did a great job of this. Some people, it's going to take you much longer if you live below your means by 10%. Like, you need to live below your means by like 50% if you want to shorten your retirement age gap by as much as you have.
Yeah.
So just putting that out there, you probably follow.
Yeah. So the living below your means is a step one, right, Jesse? And then the step two is like, okay, now I need to expand my income. And it sounds like that's what you did. You went from copiers to software. So talk about your journey in corporate, and then when you realized, okay, this actually isn't what I want to do.
Yeah. And I think also, like, I had to create a game for myself, because like you guys said, living below your means, like that gets boring after a while. Like, everyone else is doing all these things. But for me, for whatever reason, I had this 100K. I need 100K saved up in order to get into real estate, which is not true, but that's just what I thought at the time. So I had that goal, and that's also what helped me and drove me. So I think people figuring out, like, okay, if you don't want to retire at 65, then figure out the game plan, and then also figure out how to, gamify what you're doing, so then it actually becomes more fun. And so before I even got into software sales, was also in the back of my head, I was trying to figure out how to get into real estate. And for me, it was reading the books, listening to the podcast. Yours was one of them. And I had analysis paralysis for 5 years, guys. I told people 5 years before I bought my first house, I'm going to get a house in Arizona because I love it, and I used to vacation out there all the time. And it wasn't until I actually put pad to pen and wrote out, like, hey, Jesse, this year I'm going to, and instead of one house, I put two. I'm going to buy 2 houses this year. Once I did that next 30 days, actually 2 days later, I ended up making 2 offers on houses. One of them got accepted. 30 days later, that's when I closed. And I don't think it's coincidence. I think that's just the reality of actually not having the game plan in your head, but putting it pad to pen. I don't know if you have, experience like that, but that changed.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's such a simple concept, but it takes you so far. I personally, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I know Corey's type A like this too and super organized, but for me, I'm a very much so a list guy, and like I need to check things off. And so for me, like if I keep seeing that every day, and it's gonna irk me that it's not checked off and crossed off and behind me. So for example, like putting your goals down on paper, not just only buying the house, right? Like putting your business goals out there. Corey and I have a whiteboard behind us that we have business meetings here, but we write it down. We literally check it off. The end of last year, we didn't check this thing every single day, but it's just here, right? You like look at it. So I see it every couple of days. He sees it every day. Yeah. We looked at the end of the year, everything was checked off. And we're like, dude, holy shit. Why didn't we have more things on here? Why didn't we have a bigger gap? So we like 10x at least the revenue for this year. Not quite there, but we're kind of getting on the path. But the reason I bring that up is for people to just put it in your notes on your phone. And I don't think it's enough. There's something about it. I don't know, I'm not a philosopher here, but putting it on paper and having like your brain touch the hand and then onto the pad, there's something about it and it makes it feel real and like attainable a little bit more, and to want to cross it off and move on to the next thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, me too. So when people hear I'm going to go buy real estate and I'm going to, buy 2 properties, nobody really thinks that, at least I wouldn't think before listening to your story, that 2 properties could remove me alone from my W-2 job, right? Like you think it takes 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 properties. So I want to talk about you getting into that space, what those 2 properties have done for you and how you were able to kind of set yourself free and break apart from the everyday monotony of the corporate life.
Yeah. So once I got that first house accepted, now I have a house in Arizona, and I purposely went into it thinking I'm going to house hack this. So essentially house hacking for me was living in 1 bedroom, renting out all the other bedrooms or units or doors. And so that's what I did. I came to Arizona and I was very intentional. For me, the Growth House motto, which is a company, is you become who you surround yourself with. And like you guys said, association plays a huge role in your life. The quote, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So when I bought that house, I'm like, who do I want as roommates? Well, I've always been in the back of my mind saying, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to get into real estate. So I purposely put ads on Facebook saying, hey guys, this is like a business professional entrepreneur house. And so I got those type of people to reach out and be like, hey man, this is exciting. I want to be a part of this. And so that's what happened. I had people reach out. I had a bunch of people who were either self-employed or business professionals that were in the same, mindset as I was. And also another thing that I really liked, and at the end of my search for a house, is that I knew that I wanted a detached casita to put on Airbnb, because I just saw what that did for a lot of people. And I'm like, man, if I can cover a lot of my mortgage just with this casita, that could be a huge plus. And so I can kind of break down some of those numbers, but essentially I got into the house. I think the purchase price, I should wrote it down. It was like $395, put 10% down. So that's $40,000 all in with mortgage, about $2K. This is when rates were kind of nice.
Yep. Yeah.
And then, the bedrooms, I was renting them out for $1,000, came furnished. We had a kind of a niche, so I was able to charge a little bit of a premium. And then that guest house I put on Airbnb, and that thing was crushing it, and still is to this day, $1,600 to $3,000 a month just for that guest house.
So this is optimizing a single property, right? And this can really change your life. It did change your life. I want to talk about 1000%. The thought process of moving from Portland to Arizona. You just picked up and left, and you just did the damn thing. You were like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to live with entrepreneurs. I've never heard of that idea. We've been doing this. Your episode 215-ish. I've never heard of somebody saying this is going to be an entrepreneur house. We've heard of the, what are those TikTokers that live in the
content house or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, even that's a cool idea, right? Like having this, whatever. I don't want to talk about them, but the point is you were able to be like, I want to surround myself with people, putting ads on Facebook, and it actually worked. Talk about the mindset of like, I'm moving. I mean, you essentially across the country, you're moving, 2,000 miles south to.
Didn't know a single person out here, guys. And it's so funny because my whole life is like, I just think about back to quotes that I hear. And I'm like, damn, that quote really changed my life. So this is the quote. It was on Twitter too. On Twitter, it said, life hack, move out of your hometown in your 20s. And that was right around the same time where I was like, I'm done with this analysis paralysis. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to write this down. And so that's the quote that made me move in my mindset shift.
I don't know if it was our guy that said this, but Robert Croak, who is the inventor of Silly Bands, came on our show and said that. He said, like, the number one thing you should do is move away from your hometown. He got a bunch of shit for it. Like, I can't afford it, blah, blah, whatever. There's always an excuse. But like, I did that for college. He moved away and it changed his life in ways, some good, some bad, right? Like I stayed within about an hour of where I grew up. And I always think about how would my life be different if I did move or if I went to college and across the country. But doing that, it was like you just manifested it. And so I want to talk about these numbers here. You rented out, you mentioned it briefly, but what did that one property do for you? It sounded like from what I heard, you were able to make tens, a few $1,000s a month in profit off of it, right?
Yeah. When I was living in that house, pretty much every room was about $1,000. I'm looking down right now, 4 bedrooms. Well, 5. I lived in the master bedroom. So that was my room. And then, so that's $4,000 just in that house itself. And then the guest house, let's just average because it was seasonal, so it fluctuated. Let's just conservatively say $2,000 a month. So that's 4,000 plus two, so that's $6,000 gross. And then my mortgage, and then plus the expenses. I provided toiletries, utilities, all of that. So that's $6,000 minus $3,200. That's pretty much what my net was while I was still living in the house.
So $2,800 a month. That's what's roughly, right? That you were netting while living there. Now that's like an example. That's like the best case house hacking scenario. But it's funny. I just talked about this with my girlfriend because in the next couple years, whatever it is, we're going to move in together. And I was thinking like, if we're going to wait for the forever home where you have kids, in the meantime, in that 3-year time frame, whatever it is, I kind of got her on board. I didn't even tell you about this, about house hacking, not living with other people, right? Because I don't want to do that, but buying a duplex. And you can buy new construction duplexes and live in one unit and rent out the other. Even to take that right now in Philadelphia, which would be a $4,000 mortgage. What if you took your $4,000 mortgage and moved it to $2,000 and then you split that, or whatever, however you want to split it based on your income, right? And then you're like, oh, damn, like I can spend $2,000 to live in a new construction place for a few years. So the reason why I brought that up, Jesse, is because everyone that's listening is gonna be like, I know you bought it at 3% interest. You can't do that anymore. But like, that's what a 7% interest can look like. And you actually ran the numbers to say that you can do this.
Do you want to do it?
Yeah. Let us know. Tell us what the numbers would look like today. Cause people are going to ask that question in their head, at least.
100%. Yeah. People are like, okay, Jesse, that's 3%. But I can find a property right now here in Tempe, Phoenix, this general area. Cause this is what I know. I don't do out of state investing. So at least not currently. So if you buy a house out here, $500K, you can literally buy it in the same neighborhood as me. Down payment, let's say it's 10%. That's $50K plus maybe $30K of, bed, bath to add on. And I didn't know this. I use all my own personal capital, but if you're able to do a strategic partnership, whether it's a JV agreement, raise capital, there's ways to get in. So I'll never use that as an excuse. But at 8% at a 30-year, you're looking at a $4,000 mortgage, like you mentioned. And then let's add another $1,000 of co-living expenses. Let's say you want to, maybe spend $8,000 to $12,000 to furnish it, and then the $1,000 of utilities and maybe adding toiletries in there. So that's $5,000. Okay, yes, that is a big jump from my 32 that I have on my current house, but still $5,000. Do you guys remember what I was making on this house? So let's say you run the same numbers. It's a 6.3 plus a casita. You're looking at $6,000 for the main house, and you're looking. I just was super conservative. Let's say $1,250 for the casita. That's $7,250. Guys, in today's market, you can still net $2,250. Like I literally just ran an example right there.
Yeah, it takes what it takes is a small amount of delayed gratification and sacrifice, because that $2,250 in your pocket in that example, you're living in, by the way, a beautiful home for $550,000. It might not be a mansion, but it's a pretty nice home. To do that,
100%.
And then you also are sharing you're sharing a space with people who are like want to grow and succeed. And it could be the coolest experience ever. Even if you don't want to share a space, if you take that sacrifice for a few years, that $2,200 a month in your pocket, annualized $25,000, $30,000 a year, do that for 2 years, that's 60 grand. Go take that, put that in the next deal. And by the way, that 60 grand is not even including the equity you probably have in your home. Other people are paying it down. It's like this snowball that once you start, the house hacking it changed my life. I mean, I was paying $200 a month to live in my house hack. So it's just, you have to start it early, because it's really difficult to do it with 2 kids or 3 kids. It's like
very much so. Speaking
and
from
like
experience.
Yeah,
on one.
I would never suggest. You're beyond it, but it's okay.
No, it's not even that. It's not even the convincing to move into a shared dwelling. It's how do I say this? The time and energy it takes to shut your brain off and turn it back on to go study and implement things is so much harder now. I'm so thankful that we started this thing when we did, because my hours of my day are just trimmed so much. And it's not even like because I'm occupied by helping, like raise the baby, but it's my brain capacity. Like I just can't think sharply, or I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but like everything is like skewed and I'm like rattled by the end of the day. I'm like, dude, my fuse box is done. Like I just got to shut off. And like some people are like, dude, that's no excuse, but trust me, if you have a kid, you understand. I know there's we haven't talked a lot about, parents and raising kids and all that stuff on the show, because I think I'm the only guy personally, like from our friend circle, that's going through it right this second. And it's just, it's a different ball game. So I do feel for people that are listening to this that didn't start early and they have the family. It's still possible, but it takes a little extra than we had in the beginning. But that's just a side note. I want to go back to just the whole story here. Dude, like you have a very compelling story and marketable story. And I'm not trying to say like a salesy market yourself, but like the fact that you followed Kiyosaki's blueprint to a T, dude, and went to sell the copiers just starts me there. But then to have the wherewithal to take it a step further and say, okay, here's the quote. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Everyone hears that quote. And you're like, dude, I get it. Because it is true, right? Like if all your boys are going home playing video games after work, like you're going to go do that. And like you wake up 10 years and you're like, okay, I had a blast. Don't get me wrong. It's friggin' the best hanging out with the boys. But damn, I didn't buy any real estate. I didn't spend any time learning and taking what I know is out there and just going and trying to take a little bit of the piece for myself. You didn't do it. And so you bring it back to you were like, you know what, dude, for me, I know I want to become a real estate investor. I see the success that it's given a lot of people. 99% of all millionaires have become so or have a piece of their portfolio through real estate. I'm just throwing quotes out there that we've heard. I've not heard a better use of that quote, surrounding yourself with people by creating your own dwelling space and marketing it to have people come in and pay your mortgage, but also to be around those dudes all the time too. And maybe it's guys and gals, but the fact that you guys can spitball every night too and talk about your future and talk about what you didn't learn in your 9-to-5 job or what you didn't learn in school growing up. And maybe they're not real estate investors, but they are entrepreneurs in other ways. They can help you market things. It's so invaluable and such a genius thing to do. You mentioned to us pre-recording, you're only 30, if that. And the fact that you no longer sit back and say, okay, let me analyze this for 5 years. You just say, okay, I like that. Let me study a little bit and then go. You take the action. And it's just proof that if you take what you learn, understand you're going to fail along the way, maybe not drastically, but there's speed bumps. We've failed multiple times. That's pretty much the only reason we're still here. It's like, we're just like, dude, just gotta get back up. Take haymakers every day. But I'm just proud of you, man, because it's so compelling and exciting to realize that there's people out there, the 1% that actually go do the shit that they hear, and your story is amazing. And I think you've seen so much success for a young guy. I want to talk about, kind of how you created your business now. We talked about the properties, we talked about you moving and like having all these insightful things that you put to action, but like talk about Growth House and like how you kind of put this thing from paper to real life.
Right before we get into that, which I do want to do, you mentioned how these 2 properties netted before your pre-recording, how these 2 properties netted over $100,000 for you, which was took you to the ability to leave your job. Let's do that real quick, and then we'll get into the Growth House.
For sure. Yeah. So kind of picking back on the story of getting that first house, people were like, Jesse, we want to live in the house. I'm like, well, I'm out of bedrooms. So it's kind of a funny story how I got that second property. So for me, as I mentioned, I wrote down like, hey, I want 2 houses. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, and also that's another thing I want to make sure people realize, like, I didn't even know what PITI, like I kind of understood it, but you don't have to know everything to go get a house, especially your first 1 or 2. Like, I think I overanalyzed so many things. So I say all that to say, like, I had no idea how I was going to get that second house, but I got blessed because someone across the street who had the same exact floor plan as I did was like, hey, Jesse, I'll sell you the house. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So we get over there. He gives me a verbal. I'm about to sign. Literally like the day before we made it official where it was like, legal, he calls me. He's like, hey man, open door, offered me 20,000 more. I'm out. And I was just like, all right, well, there's 3 months left in the year. I need to get this second house because I committed to myself I would do it. And I literally spent, a day or two kind of just on the couch. I started watching the show Undercover Billionaire, which if you haven't watched it, it's amazing. And it inspired me to be like, I'm going to get off, my butt and actually try to figure out how to get this second house. And so for me, I'm like, let me stay in my same neighborhood because I know it. So I've always heard of wholesalers knocking on doors. And I'm like, I used to be a copier. I was still in copier sales, software sales at this time. And I was like, let me go just knock on doors and see what happens. So I spent that following Saturday, backwards hat. I was wearing like a Nike tech shirt because I was like, okay, I don't want to look like a solar person. I don't want to look like pest control. I want to look like I was just going for a run, which, I kind of was. And so I had my water bottle because it was about 100 degrees out here in Arizona. I go knock on every single neighbor's door. And it was getting late and I saw this one house across the street from the park. I'm like, perfect, has enough parking. Let me go see what they're up to. I get in the house, sweetest Jamaican couple. Hey, Jesse, we're not looking to sell, but we actually just bought a house. I'm like, okay, well, can I talk to the owner? Yeah, sure, Jesse, here's the owner's contact. I make an offer that same day. 30 days later, I have the second house.
Wait, hold
And
up. Not to cut you off. So
yeah.
bring you back to the door. You knocked. This is another incredible piece of your story, dude. You're just taking action. But the Jamaican couple opens the door and they say they're not selling. But is it their piece me to the next stage?
They're renting. They say we're renters. I said, okay, cool. But then they say, but we just bought a house. I said, I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh, this house is either going to be for rent or for sale. And so I said, hey, can I talk to the owner? They're like, yeah, let me give you the contact. I got my agent to make an offer that same day, and then it got accepted. I moved in 30 days later. So it's kind of crazy how that happened. And there's another quote there that I really love because it's kind of a combination of a couple quotes where it says, for me, when I like saw that house across the street, that would have been perfect. At least I thought. When that got rejected, for me, I'm like, all right, it's not in God's timing. You know, I'm a person of faith. I'm like, all right, God, like I understand. Let me wait. I'm like, why am I using God as an excuse? Maybe he just wants me to work a little harder. So if God shuts a door, go check to see if it's unlocked or another door is unlocked. And I'm like, I literally did that like in real time. I went knocking on doors. So it's kind of fun just to have that happen.
That's where you take God's advice extremely literally, right? Like you went to the actual door. I think the reason that certain people get what they want is because they do what most are not willing to do. I'm telling you, for me to go knock on doors right now, that would be tough. Like we do cold calling. We do, we get leads that have come to us. We make calls. We talk to sellers. Knocking on doors you got to have some balls. So for you to do that, it doesn't surprise me that you were able to get what you were seeking. And then let's talk about the numbers on that property, just to frame everything. Like, how did that end up working out for you? Because that was the one that put you over the edge to say, look, see you, corporate, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, I got a new job. I was in training and I'm running the numbers on this house and I was living in it. And I'm like, okay, the first house, is netting me now that I moved out, another $1,000. And then I move into the new house. And also what I ended up doing was rent out that first house that the bedroom I was sleeping in. And I realized that it wasn't going to work with my situation. So I actually was out of a house and the second house is being remodeled. And this is just like to show that get creative, make it work. And so I put my bed in the kitchen. So the whole house is being remodeled and my bed was in the kitchen and I slept there for like a month. So at the same time, I'm like trying to show people like, hey, this is the growth house vision. Because at this time I'm like, all right, now we actually got to make this a business and have a brand behind it. So I remember one of my best friends now, he reached out to me on Facebook. He's like, hey, I like this growth house thing. Can I come like check it out? I said, absolutely. I'm hyped because I have it all here. And so I bring him to the house that's being remodeled. He walks in the door. He's like, why is there a bed in the kitchen? I'm like, oh, yeah, I probably should have moved the bed. I'm sleeping there. But here's the vision of the growth house. So I said, there's going to be entrepreneurs in here. There's going to be this and that. And I remember him putting his hands on his hips. He just kind of looks around. He's like, I see it. I'm in. And like, you only need one person to believe in you, especially at that time of my life. And so kind of a cool story about him. He was sleeping on his friend's couch. He moves into the growth house. He started an Airbnb property management company. He had 3 properties under his management, barely could afford rent. Now, actually, no, not even like now, 3 or 6 months later, he had 30 properties under management in 3 different states. And now he's going to surpass, $1 million in revenue. Like, that's the power of also just surrounding yourself with like-minded people. So kind of a quick like side story about, how that second house happened and growth house kind of just started happening.
Dude, I love it. And so take me through I'm conceptualizing the business model but I want to talk about like the scaling of it and what your visions are for it. So this is how I'm seeing it. But basically you're house hacking each house. You're just kind of leapfrogging each time. And when you go, you're surrounding yourself with the people you bring in are all entrepreneurs or future business owners. Exactly right. You obviously go through a vetting process, which is interesting, a little bit different than vetting a tenant out. You're vetting how can this person potentially, kind of fit the cog of the wheel that I'm running here or the puzzle that I'm putting together. Is this something that you just are going to continue to do year after year? Or like, what's the growth model, but like, what is the business model for a growth house?
Yeah. And also I'll tie in how I quit corporate because I know I keep on forgetting to tell you that. So as far as growth house, we have the growth house living, and that's where people actually live, business professionals, aspiring entrepreneurs, et cetera. And so for us is having like in Arizona, we'll probably have, 6 and maybe 1 flagship mansion here. But other areas across the country want 2 to 3 in each major entrepreneurial city. This is a place where you graduate college, you're early, you know, in your career, and you're like, I want to be surrounded with like-minded people. I want to plug and play, place to live, place with connections, community, etc. And this would be perfect for me. So that's kind of like the vision of that is here, at least for now in the States, 2 to 3 in each major entrepreneurial city with a base in Phoenix, Arizona.
Sign me up.
I've never heard of an idea this like that hit me like this because, dude, getting in rooms with people who want to be successful is hard, one, but two, there's a very big different. It's just different to be like on a Zoom. Like you can only do so much, and then if you take it another step and you want to be like in rooms with people for an hour or two, you don't get to learn. Like, you'd have to repeat that process over and over and really get to know them, and then latch onto them and like almost annoy them in a way. But when you live with someone, the osmosis of turning into that person or melding your ideas is like, it's inevitable. Like, I don't think you can, you know, it's like, it's, dude, it is genius. That is such a genius model. So to have that, I think now I understand where you're saying that you want to help 100 people reach financial freedom this year. And then eventually much more. I'm thinking like, how do you have a mastermind too, which is cool. But that for anybody that is, 18, I guess is probably the youngest legally, right? 18 to 35. You don't have 3 kids. I mean, maybe having kids at all is kind of a barrier, but like you should think about this. You really should think about where you live and who you surround yourself with. And there's nothing better than surrounding yourself than by actually living with that person. So, or those people. So tie in the actual leaving of corporate, but I just think this idea is so genius.
I appreciate that. And people can do this in their own community. Like you just get to attract people that, you want to live with, especially house hacking. Excuse me. With house hacking, you're able to like really say, hey, I'm only trying to live with these type of people. So you're living with them, be specific, be intentional. Also, one more caveat is if you don't have to do this whole entrepreneurship model, just co-living in general can still give you these type of numbers. And so tying this back into me leaving corporate was, like I said, at the time I switched into software sales. I'm in training. My base salary is 6 figures and I'm planning to make, another 100K. So I'm excited. I really, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I wrote down 2022 in February. I do want to quit and leave corporate America, but I'm like, I don't really need to because everything's going well. I'm making so much money at the software company. And so I get this random email that says, hey, Jesse, HR wants to talk to you. I was number 1 in my sales company at the previous company. I got recruited to come to this company. So in the back of my head, I'm like, all right, cool. What do I get? A promotion? Even though I haven't done any sales.
That's great.
And so I go to HR and they're like, hey, Jesse, we're cutting half our team. And I'm like, okay. And they go, you're one of those people. And I was like, I haven't even like done any, sales. They're like, yeah, I know. You're still in training. And so we have to keep the people that have already performed. And I'm like, guys, I would crush it, but I understand. And so I'm like trying to really understand this whole concept of getting fired. And at the same time, she says, hey, but there's a severance package we could give you, but we want to keep you. We just want to keep you on a different team. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me interview with the other team. So it's slightly a downgrade on the team. So I have a Zoom call with them. And just from the very beginning, I'm like, these people are not treating me very well, kind of trying to big dog me, like prove to me why you should be on this team. I'm like, I got the job above you guys. Why are you acting like this? And this is where it got me. They said, hey, Jesse, if you really want to be with us, you would sell yourself to us. So Jesse, sell yourself to us. I got what they're saying, like, okay, sales, sell myself, but it just clicked. In the back of my head, I'm adding up the rental income. I'm like, okay, if I live in this for a little while and then leave, I'm going to be making like 6 figures. So I looked at them and I said, hey guys, can you remind me what the salary is? And they said it was like 86K or something. So I thought for a second. I go, you know what? I don't want to sell myself because actually you guys can't even afford me. And that's how I left corporate America. I was like, I'm out.
Mic drop. Yo, so that reminded me that, first of all, that's perfect. And you set yourself up on the back end to be able to, that's basically You got FU money. Even if you don't really think you have FU money, you did.
No, you did it. Well, you fucking did it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was corporate FU money.
Yeah, exactly. This reminded me, I don't think I've ever shared this in the podcast before, of the reason or the time that I knew I wasn't going to go into corporate America or I didn't want to at all. And I'm not going to shout out the company because I don't want to be disrespectful, but I was an intern at a big insurance and what do we call it? Like financial firm. And 22. I went in there and the guy that was sitting down, I noticed some things. He was out of shape, clean shaven. And he was sitting behind this desk and his first question he asked me, why did you wear a black tie? Because I was wearing a tie that a suit that I wore to a wedding recently. I didn't really know. I wore a gray suit, white shirt, black tie. He said, this is what you need to do if you want to be successful. White shirt, blue shirt, pink shirt, power tie. Called it like a yellow tie. And I said, I got to wear a power tie in order to be successful in this business. That's what you're telling me right now. We haven't even said 2 words to each other. So he said, yeah, but I just wanted to point that out before he started. I said, with all due respect, I'm not sure this is going to work out. And I left too. I remember being 22, not knowing what I was going to do next, thinking this company was great. And then I instantly thought, I'm going to get my first job through connections for sure. Because I didn't go right into like being an entrepreneur or anything. But I just remember thinking, this life, this weird microcosm of sucking up and brown nosing and doing what other people tell you, it was not gonna fucking work for me. I just knew it. And we haven't achieved all the things that we wanted to yet. Of course, life is about growth. We still have talked about leaving our jobs. We really do like them, or else we would have done it sooner. But just knowing that fact and like not being able to say like, I'm not going to do what you tell me just because you think this is the way. It reminded me of that. I just want to share that story because like you did the same thing, man. You're like, this isn't for me. And to be able to jump out, create your own company, not everyone can do it, but I want people to remember that you had 5 years of analysis paralysis too. So you're being humble in that like this, you didn't do this overnight, right? Like you finally realized the timing was right for you. So anyway, I felt that was a story that was relevant in this time, but I want to talk more about Growth House, the growth of that and what you see as a vision, for the future.
Yeah. So I mentioned already kind of like the living situation or the goal and vision for that is, but then also notice like someone like you guys, one of you guys have kids, right? So we have people that have kids like, all right, I might not be able to come live in the house. So how can we also have this community where it involves more people and includes more people? So that's when the whole branding of, okay, let's actually create a online community, mastermind, etc. And this is actually still in beta. May is our last month in beta, and then we're going to launch it to the public. And super excited about that. And then on the mastermind side of things, this is actually kind of a funny story and a big learning lesson for me was that first year of doing Growth House. I'm always extreme. I'm like, all right, I want to do a mastermind because I've been a part of them, but I want to do it unlike anyone else. So I'm going to do a 21-day mastermind. Can you imagine 21 days? Like most people can't even spend a weekend.
Yeah.
So not all of my ideas are that great. I just want to make sure people know that. So I got $60K going on this credit card. And I had the thought process of if I build it, they will come. I didn't realize it's backwards. So I have this whole elaborate plan. No one signs up. So I switch it last minute. And it was an amazing experience. Basically, we gave people 4-day packages instead of, hey, you had to spend 21 days with us. Flew in speakers from all over the country, from Puerto Rico, from Dubai, Tennessee, Dallas. And it was an amazing experience, but just way too long. I think I'm burnt out by the end of that because I basically had to be on for 21 days. And so we thought, okay, let's do the same thing, but just condense it to a 3 to 4 day mastermind. And so that's what we're hosting twice a year now. So yeah, that's the mastermind aspect of it, along with the online community.
That's awesome, man. I think, I said, sign me up when you first brought it up. I just love the idea. And I think it's so genius for, the age range that Corey kind of mentioned. But really it could be for, not any age group, but what I want to talk about is for when this is just very like niched down into one of the layers that you're talking about. But when you go to vet these people that are coming through the Growth House, like who is someone that's like your ideal candidate to live in one of the houses? Because, you, as of right now, let's just call it like the 2 houses in Arizona. Obviously you're expanding, but how thoughtful were you when you put together the vetting process and who's going to come in the house? Because, one bad apple doesn't totally, I won't say it ruins everything, but it becomes annoying. And if they're signed up for at least for a year, you're like, okay, what's the situation? So I'm just curious on how you kind of put that mini aspect together.
That's a great question. So for me, it's a lot about energy and positivity. If someone's negative, it's not going to be a good fit. And I basically say, hey, this is what we do. Like in the mornings, most of us go do cold plunges, go work out together, and everyone's super excited. And I just throw some phrases out there where the negative people are like, oh God, that sounds terrible. So you got to make sure to take away the people who would not be good fits, just energy wise and vibe wise.
Sure.
But then also what we do, and people can do this in a regular co-living house, which would be, I don't make the decision. Sure, I have a one say in it, but the house makes a decision. So what we do is we have a questionnaire, and then they have a 15-minute call with me or my assistant. And then after that, we schedule a FaceTime with one of the people in the house. And if that person likes them, then schedule a FaceTime when they're all probably having dinner together one of those nights. Boom. Now the whole house gets to, talk to them, ask them a couple questions. They get the vibe. And then from there, I'm like, guys, it's your decision. I already passed them through this process. So it's kind of cool because the house gets to vote and say, yeah, they're in. It's got to be unanimous.
Very cool. And you already mentioned one gentleman that was in the house. He started the Airbnb business and he's making, $1 million a year. Can you give us maybe another example or two of like some people that, came into the house and they were young budding entrepreneurs and then, just a success story? I think those are just inspiring here because there's 5 rooms, right? And you had one of them. So there's 4 other guys kind of trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we had a guy, I actually did for a while, I was like recruiting from ASU, who are the top people that have won the pitch competitions at ASU. So one of the guys, I reached out to him on LinkedIn. It's like, dude, you should come join this house. It's the entrepreneur house. And we were very new at the time, no one's heard of us. And so he's like, all right, let me go check it out. And he actually ended up developing a product just prior to when I met him that he was winning some competitions. That was called Skipping Hole. Essentially, it's cornhole, but in water. So there's skipping stones and there's a target and you skip them, especially for Arizona. It's a seasonal thing. But if you have any type of water, it's a super fun game. And so he ended up getting approached by Shark Tank to get on the show. He never actually went on the show because it was during the vaccines and all that type of stuff. But he ended up getting, offered by Shark Tank. And then this year he'll cross $1 million in revenue. He's literally selling out like crazy. He had to move out of the house because dude, we can't have all these packages show up in our garage. So he's someone a success story that actually had to move out because he had too much business.
Wow, man. So did we talk specifically about co-living and how that works? I just want to make sure people heard that. So basically what this is, and Jesse, you can tell it better than me, but you have 5-6 bedrooms and it's furnished and everyone, pays basically rent for their room. My sister lived like this when she lived in New York. There's a common area and then there's everyone pays for their room. And you kind of, how does it work? Do you split everything or is you the owner of the house, you pay for utilities? Is there rent included in that? Because I want people to be able to put this into models in their own city.
And before that, it's commonly known as rent by the room, right? I like co-living a lot better, but kind of walk us through how you set it up.
Yeah, I think it's really popular if you just think about not dorms, but student housing. A lot of these student housing is very similar, except we just do it more in a professional way, I would say. But there's a guy, Todd Baldwin. Did you ever have him on your show? He's out there in Washington.
No, I've heard the name. I'm actually going to look
Yeah, he's amazing. I'll connect you with him. Awesome. So he's someone that I listened to every single podcast that he was guested on. So I want to shout him out because I followed his playbook and his model where he goes, okay, I'm going to furnish the room and I'm going to make this an elite experience where they come and they want to stay forever. As long as, until they buy a house. And so that's what I did. So I included all utilities. I bought nice beds for everyone and, a nightstand, a lamp, utilities included, parking's included, Wi-Fi's included. This is a big one for me that I learned from Todd was also weekly cleaners. So we have professional cleaners that come every single Thursday. That come make the house amazing, fill the toiletries. This is soap ran out. I supply all of that. And so that's how I do it. But essentially, yeah, like you guys said, it's you pay for a furnished room. And then also what I like about it, and people can think about this, is if I've never had a vacancy in 3 years. The reason is I always have backup strategies. And one of my backup strategies that usually works is I can always Airbnb the room for 30 days. It's at a price point that everyone would be like, oh my gosh, this is such a good deal. I want to come live here, especially if it's only for short term. Although majority of my people are here 6 months or longer.
I want to mention something here because this is like the breakdowns of real estate, real estate investing, basically. In theory, short-term rentals, you can make the most amount of money in theory, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of shit going on, but like the most amount of money comes from short-term. Co-living is in that range. Then you go down to midterm, right? Then you go down to long-term. Like that's the strategy in terms of time allocation is really high with short-term, time allocation is really low with long-term. That's why you make less money, right? It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're telling me that you're combining co-living and a mastermind into one thing, right? So you can say, yeah, okay, it's $1,000 to rent the bedroom. But if I know as a aspiring entrepreneur that I'm going to be living with 500 entrepreneurs, that $1,000 is probably worth like $5,000 a month because people pay that to go into masterminds, right? They pay $4,000 a month. Now, when you're 22, I get it's really hard, but like you got to think about it as an ROI. You're getting an infinite return on your living plus you're in a mastermind. So you're actually underselling it, even though you're obviously crushing it. So it's that combination is really cool.
And say if also the elite living experience, you're basically living in an Airbnb. Like think about how for people listening, if you're, kind of like us bros here on the show, you live with other guys and it's not the cleanest all the time. To have someone come in and just, whether it's in college, out of college, whatever, if you don't have a cleaner coming in, that place is getting dirty or like just, the dishes and like if everybody they're rushing out to a job, coming back and then you hang out for a little bit. But I really like you guys where you're almost setting these people up. And I shouldn't say kids, but like I think like a young guy coming out of college, like you're taking this kid's life and making it so much better right away because they don't have to go through the trials and tribulations of, go through the corporate, try to figure this out. And then when I get home, I'm like on YouTube trying to learn from other people. You guys are already able to have those conversations together and like help them skip certain steps and maybe avoid pitfalls that you had to, or like avoid analysis paralysis. It's just for someone that's interested in becoming an entrepreneur, investing in real estate, because it's what we all do. Like it's just a no brainer, man. I'd be like chomping at the bit. Granted, it took me a little bit longer to learn that that's what I wanted to do. So I think that age gap was pretty healthy, like early 20s.
You know who should do this?
Your brother.
That's 100%. Exactly.
He should start the one in Philly. I thought about it right away.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, because my brother is 22. If you ask him, he thinks he sucks at everything, and it's because he feels like he's so behind. He's fucking 22. I tell him all the time, like, dude, when I was 22, I didn't have anything. Right? He has a few. He's doing a couple wholesale deals. He has a few
arbitrages,
Airbnb arbitrages, right? So he's renting a couple homes out and then putting them on Airbnb. And like, so he's already in the mix with this. He 100% should do that. Like whenever.
It's a no-brainer. I thought about it right away. I was like, well, and you were like top entrepreneurial cities, dude. So I'm just thinking like, we'll probably have to offline about this, but if Philly's on the map, I want to have a conversation.
You can do it anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Any.
You guys are in Philly, both of you?
Yeah.
You guys know Top Dog? Top Dog Law?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my boy.
Oh, really?
He's coming to our mastermind. That's like one of my best friends. He's out here in Arizona as well.
I see his fucking billboard.
I see the billboards everywhere, dude. I don't know the guy.
Yeah,
I see him every day.
We know of
That's
him.
my guy.
That's hilarious.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, I don't really want to end the show, but I feel like we're at that stage where we just want to wind it down.
Yeah, leave him wanting a little bit more,
Yeah, exactly. So, Jesse, I'm curious if you have a piece of advice for your younger self. I haven't asked this question on a show, and I don't know, you just seem like the perfect person to ask it to. Do you what advice, you said you're 30, if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell Jesse getting out of school, Cabana boy? What would you tell him and why?
Yeah, I'll tell him two things. Find a mentor as soon as possible. And it's someone who has a lifestyle that you want, fruit on the tree, but also the character and values that, are important to you. That's probably number two, but number one would be find those friends that you want to surround yourself with, because at the end of the day, like we just said, as cliche as it sounds, you are going to be so, especially at that age, you're so impressionable that if you're able to get around the right people early, that's going to change your life. It changes it so quick, especially at that age. Like I would give my 8 years that I have over your brother to be 22 again. Like everything, I would start at negative to be 22 again, knowing what I know now. So
Dude,
that's what I would say.
My brother just turned 22 in March, and his birthday, we were having dinner. It's so funny you said that. I said, his name's Ethan. You got to slow down in your head, speed up in action, slow down in your head. And I told him, I said, I don't care who you are. If you're 65 years old and you have $2 billion, that person would give up every single thing to be 22 and broke. And
100%.
What you just said is the thing. I don't necessarily want to go back to being 22. I love my age. I love where I am, but just to be in that carefree, we're not exactly carefree now. You know what I mean? We're not exactly, he's not carefree because he thinks he doesn't have to be, but it's we've entered into an echelon, into a realm where you're shit matters. It matters as much as the attention you give it. We can probably scale that back, our mindset a little bit, but being 22 is it's a cheat code, especially in 2024 when you can listen to this podcast, you can go on Instagram, you can learn so much. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. You need a niche, but I love that advice, man. I think it's perfect.
There's so much out there that I just didn't know about at 22. And I think, a part B of what you said was knowing what you know now. Because think about all the trials and tribulations you went through over the last 8 years, and now what you know is out in the world, and you're like, oh, I could have started this sooner. I could this is cool. For me at 22, just leaving school, dude, I never read a book. I scanned them to get through the tests. I read I've read a book, but it wasn't something I was intrigued about. And then I got the job. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to chase. It was in sales, right? So you're chasing the next sale and you go after it, and time flies, man. And if you're basically living for the weekends at that point, and you're you start to put a little bit of thought into, well, eventually I want a house, or eventually I want a car, or eventually I want to start a family. But really putting the energy and effort in forcing yourself to find a mentor and find that person, you're absolutely right. They're both perfect, stepping stones on each other for words of advice. But finding that person early on, for example, for Ethan, he's just gonna be light years ahead. And for me, that's something that I wish I found sooner. Is first of all, it's very hard to find what you want to do in life at 22. There's so many things out there. And I think now I feel I'm drinking through a fire hose every day. I'm there's so many ways to invest in real estate. We talk to so many cool people. That's the blessing and a curse about the show, by the way. We talk to so many cool people. I'm dude, sign me up for that one. That sounds freaking awesome. But there's so many years and energy and things that go into it. It's sexy now because the branding's there and the final product's there. But I get super overwhelmed with that and picking a lane and going through. And so, going back to my younger self, I think it's just knowing that I have the world's my oyster at that point and I can go for it. But finding that mentor to pull you and pluck you out is so valuable. So
100%.
And it's so easy at that younger age because everyone wants to find someone that's that reminds them of themselves, right? And at 21, 22, 23, if you show that you're hungry, but also follow through, that's all you need, guys. That's all you need. 100%. That's all you need at that age.
I think about this all the time because I've mentioned this to Rye plenty of times. I've been hearing about it almost like a sign to be, I'm a basketball coach, a sign to coach, mentor and coach, personal finance, investing, life coaching. It's something that I'm going to do. I haven't put it into a product yet. But I'm 32 and I would love, and I'm not even at the pinnacle or anywhere near it to give, but I would love to give an 18-year-old, just give them some perspective. Not sure an 18-year-old would be my client, right? They would be the ones, but 24, 25, 27, it's amazing the people that look up to you. And then when you're 50, you're all you want to do is give back. And that's what all the 50-year-olds that we've had on the show, all they want to do is give back, especially if they're really genuine people. It's to watch somebody else blossom is it's selfish, but unselfish at the same time because you want it for yourself. But it's watching that person, you making an impact on that person.
There's purpose behind it.
Purpose. Yeah.
Think about a 50-year-old, money at some point, at least for some of the entrepreneurs that we all know, they're dude, okay, what's another 10, 20 grand, 100 grand? They're whatever. But to have someone believe in you again, or want to I hate the phrase, but pick your brain. But hey, how the hell did you get there? There's a lot of times when we're going through our stage now, or early on when you're going through, I don't know, maybe I'm a young sales guy and people hey, I want to pick your brain on this. I'm dude, I don't know shit. I mean, I'm just going, I'm
Mhm.
grinding every day. But now I feel like there's, we've been through some real world stuff and like really building a business and investing and doing these things where it's like, yeah, man, like I actually have a lot to give and I enjoy it, and
Mhm.
the one thing I want to say is like back to the younger people is like a prime example, and maybe the undertone of the show for Jesse is like taking action. And like it's one thing to hear things on social media or read a quote or and comb through a book, but to take it and put your spin on it and put it into action for your life it's going to take you 10 times further than thinking about it and then like keep kicking the can down the road. There's so many times an idea comes in your head and you're like, that'd be cool. And then you forget about it. And even if you don't write it down, you're never going to think about it again. It might come up 5 years later. So it's surrounding yourself with the right people or people that have done what you want to do and that are motivating with high energy or at least optimism versus the pessimism and the negative. Because that another point brought up in the show is like that'll throw you downward spiral. And just taking action and putting it into a daily consistent thing that you do and knowing that it's important and knowing that it's something like if you don't do it, no one's going to come save you. That's one thing I learned throughout my journey. And that's what I'll end with is like, at one point I thought like, I'll just make it. Like I'll be making 100K eventually. I'll get the house eventually, but it's like, how are you going to get that, dude? Like no one's going to just give that to you. I always thought I'd be saved somehow. I don't know what it is. I don't know if anybody else has felt that way, but I was like, it'll just happen. But putting a plan into place and taking the action, seeing it on paper, back to pen to paper, like that's really what helped me put things into perspective and realize like, hey, I need to do this myself.
My man. So Jesse, this has been a pleasure, man. You're the third, you left corporate, you left your 9 to 5 at 28 years old. You're able to travel. You've put your dreams into reality. I'm sure I know there's so much more for you to do. It's exciting. I'm just so glad we got to talk to you today. If people want to learn more about you, they want to maybe, join the Growth House. They want to join the Mastermind. They want to just network. I don't know who wouldn't want to. So, but what is the best way for people to get in touch with you and to learn from what you've done?
Yeah, man, guys, this is such like an honor. Like I said, full circle moment. Didn't know what I was going to do with real estate. I was like, I'm just trying to figure this thing out. I reach out to you guys and I just want to say, you guys, even just responding was like the light in my fire. Like, okay, I got something going on. I think I'm on the right track. So I just want to say thank you for being there when I didn't know what I was doing. And as you guys mentioned, you want to help those people. So people go reach out to these guys and also anyone else that's providing you value, reach out and then you can circle back and something like this can happen. So I just want to say thank you for that. As far as how people can reach me, it's at the THE Jesse Ray on Instagram, JESSERAY. And then before even like signing up for a call to see if the mastermind is a good fit or anything, I would say go listen to the podcast. You'll get a feel of, what we are, what we're about. The podcast, Growth House Podcast. And I'll ask while we're on the air, you guys down to be on the show?
100%, dude. No brainer.
Whenever you want, dude.
Let's do it. Appreciate you guys.
Cool.
Jesse, I gotta be honest, dude. This was one of my favorite episodes. And I listeners are gonna kill me because I've said that for the last like maybe 3 or 4 episodes, but I don't know how they just keep getting better. Maybe it's just feeling the energy through the show, but just to see the full circle moment on both sides here, dude, and like just realizing you're on the other side of the country and we're connecting here and we are like-minded people and kind of chasing the same thing. We're all going through the same ups and downs in life. And like, I'm just proud of you, man. I think we've been able to see firsthand your story and your journey. And it's just amazing. I don't know how to explain the feeling from me on this side to like, it's not a student by any means. It's like just someone that's listened and has bought into something we've said, and they're like, whoa, dude, that could potentially help me in my life. And you put it into action and then you built your own network, built your own people, and you just made it. You made your own destiny, dude. You created your own destiny. And I think it's amazing. So just thank you for coming on the show. It would be obviously an honor to come on your show and share our story. We're happy to do that. But I am just ready to run through this fake brick wall behind me.
It's not fake.
And I don't know. One of my favorite episodes to date. I think people are really going to resonate with this and take a lot out of it. So thank you.
Me too. And I want to say thanks to you, Jesse. I almost got emotional listening to what you were saying because I'm thinking like if anybody's listening to this, what this show will do is put imposter syndrome underneath your foot for you to squash it. Like that's it. We have provided value. And dude, we don't have 50,000 downloads a month on this podcast. You know what I mean? Like we do well with it. This doesn't bring us a ton of revenue. It brings us some money. It's really the connections, the people, this conversation is why we do what we do. And to have somebody who has seen success, I don't care if we're 1%, 0.5% of help to you. I mean, it's awesome. So thanks again for coming on. I was going to say we'll stay in touch, but I mean, how would we not?
That's a given.
All right, man. Well, thank you again. That was amazing.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.